So I've just finished reading this book, and it's The Tao of Wu by the RZA. It's about like the Wu-Tang Clan and their philosophy. But anyway, the point of this video is in this book on page 168, there's a quote. And it says, Jesus said, "Enter by the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the way that leads to destruction. And there are many who go in by it." And I think that's a very interesting kind of parable for us now, especially inside of this self-improvement sphere where we're so used to these ideas of perhaps not feeling as though we're doing the right thing in our life. This idea that we need to follow the narrow path. Because like the quote says, there are so many things that you can do wrong, so many ways that you can follow the broad path. Things like drugs, gambling, addiction, pornography, sex addictions. The list just goes on and on, brother. And these, in the very traditional sense, of course, are like your Christian sins. But a lot of them have truth to them. For example, things like sex addiction, the amount of videos we've made on pornography addiction and why it's a bad thing. Drugs, of course, destroy and ruin lives. There are so many things. But also, I think the quote speaks to a broader way of life. And this is something we've also spoken about before on this channel. But it's the idea of you have to play a different game. You have to follow this narrow path. And it's harder to get down. It's harder to go through the narrow gate, but you need to do it. Because down the other path, do you know what lies at the end of it? It's this kind of scripted life that we've heard so much about. The ideas of going through traditional education and schooling to end up in a traditional job, a 9-to-5 office career where you sell the rest of your life away to earn enough money to barely scrape a living. And you know what the price for that is perhaps your youth and these ideas of fun. These things that now we say don't do. Follow the narrow path. Don't go out and drink all the time. Don't spend your whole life worrying about sex and women. Don't do these things that, like pornography, that are seen as socially normal. Don't do these things. Don't go down the broad path and through the broad gate, but instead do the hard stuff. Meditate. Stay on NoFap. Journal. Try and build a purposeful business. These are the things that put you onto that narrow path. And of course, you can stray. At different times in your life, you might find yourself on the broad path, but it is your responsibility to bring yourself back as quickly as you can to that narrow path. And that is essentially the point of this video, is stay on the narrow path as much as you can. Play a different game. And you know what? For a lot of people, especially the young men inside of this community, they might ask themselves why they're doing this. Why am I doing these things when the people around me, my peers, are having fun? When they're going out and they're drinking, and maybe if you're getting to that age, boys, maybe they're starting to get with other girls and you're not, because you've already committed yourself to a life of self-improvement, even at this young age. Well, it's interesting, but you need to stay on that narrow path, because the effects of this compound, right? When you start this at 13 or 14 or 15 or whatever, a young age basically, the effects compound. And year by year, they get stronger and stronger until you get to the point where you're 22, 23 years old, right? And behind you, you've got 8 years now of self-improvement experience. You know exactly what you need to do to feel good, to live a good life. And from there, boy, the sky is your limit. If though you've done none of that, and you reach the same age, 22, but you've never meditated, you're addicted to pornography, you're going out once or twice, not once or twice a day, but like 2, 4, 5 times a week. It's weird counting. You're getting with girls almost daily. Then you're behind in the race. At that point, you've not had any of that compound effect and you are behind in the race. So while it might not seem good now, don't stray. Stay on the narrow path is what I mean. But also I believe we need to have a kind of shift in the paradigm of self-improvement, because I think a big problem with self-improvement is it does exactly that. For a lot of young men now at 13, 14, they're looking at these role models who are kind of telling them to go on things like monk mode. And you know me, I'm never going to tell you to go on monk mode, because more than anything, I think it creates like this weird kind of social awkwardness. I think the perfect self-improvement and the narrow path to its highest potential builds a well-rounded man. It builds a man who, yes, is meditating, yes, is spending time on a purposeful business and isn't watching porn, isn't drinking or smoking to excess. But at the same time, it creates a man who's social, who's confident, who's warm and open and kind and happy, and has a close-knit group of friends around them, a girlfriend perhaps who they love. And don't forget that. Remember, that is part of the narrow path. And so don't neglect that aspect of your life for this idea of improvement. Because at the end of the day, if you're improving but you have no family around you, no woman that you love, then what is the point of it all? You're improving in a vacuum at that point, and the effects are reduced. So I think that's the twofold point of this video. Is number one, like Jesus said all those days ago, and this isn't a religious channel by any means, but Jesus, I guess he's a pretty cool guy. I'm not Christian either, but truth is truth, my boy. Truth is truth. Follow the narrow path is the first point of this video. And the second point is have a kind of like, have the right image of what the narrow path is. The narrow path means a holistic life and a good life. Follow that. Just don't go down the broad path. Anyway, if you gained any value from that video, drop a subscribe and come chat to me on the Discord or give me a call. I offer free one-to-one video calls. But yeah, brother, I'll see you tomorrow. Manifest excellence. I am so proud of you. Goodbye.